media, good morning. Good that you're all here. Looking forward, at least I'm looking forward, I hope you're also looking forward to the meeting of foreign ministers. I'm really want again to thank Sweden for organizing, as you know, only a couple of years in NATO and already organizing such a huge event. Sweden is an important new ally, of course, together with Finland when they came in, Finland a bit earlier. What we will focus on today is very much on the Ankara summit, the main themes for the Ankara summit. First of all, making sure the money is there to deter and defend ourselves against any adversary. And the good news here is, of course, that the money is really coming in. Many allies committing more and more, accelerating the path to the 5% spending commitment in The Hague. And this literally means tens, over the years, hundreds of billions of extra defense spending. Secondly, the money is great, but then we need to spend it. And to spend it, of course, is on the men and women in uniform, but also making sure that they have what they need to deter and defend. And that is the defense industrial output. And there's an intense debate going on with the defense industry, with the financial sector, to make sure that also they do what is needed to ramp up their defense production, not increasing prices, but producing more. And good news is coming in. We make progress, but still a lot needs to be done. And Ankara will also very much focus on this issue. And then thirdly, and last night we had Andriy Sybiha here, the Ukrainian foreign minister, of course, is how can we keep Ukraine as strong as possible in the fight? They are holding the front line, and I mean, I'm really impressed how they fiercely opposed the Russian attack. Since 2022, the full-scale invasion since 2022. But still, we have to make sure that they have what they need to maintain in the fight. And that is also about money, and making sure that that money and the support for Ukraine is as evenly distributed over NATO allies as possible. And I think we can do more here, so that will also be one of the themes we will discuss. Having said this, we will meet later today at the presser, but if you have a few questions now, I can take 2 or 3 and then we'll see each other later. Yes, please.
Thank you. What do you make of the announcement overnight from President Trump that he is sending 5,000 more troops to Poland, reversing a decline? And what does this mean for the smaller deployments from the Baltic states, as you understand it?
Well, of course, I welcome the announcement. Our military commanders are working through all the details, but of course I welcome it. But let's be clear. The trajectory we are on, which is a stronger Europe and a stronger NATO, making sure we will, over time, step by step, be less reliant on one ally only, as we have been for so long, which is the United States. So that also for them, they have the possibility and the option to pivot more towards other priorities, which are also in our interest, will continue. But of course, I very much welcome the announcement yesterday. Well, you have seen over the years always that there are decisions about deployments and troop levels, etc. But there is, when you zoom out, you clearly see the trajectory. And the trajectory is that European allies are spending more. I've mentioned yesterday again the German example, but I could mention the Dutch example, the Polish example, so many examples in Europe. Sweden, where we are today, already reaching the 5%, including the 3.5 core defense spending by 2030, 5 years ahead of schedule. And this is necessary not only to equalize what we are spending with the United States, but also to make sure that we have what we need to deter and defend against our adversaries, including our long-term threat, which is Russia. And the US will play a key role in Europe when it comes to the nuclear, but also when it comes to the conventional. But what you will be seeing over the coming time is a step-by-step process where the Europeans step up more, which is really important. The Americans acknowledge this. And within that process, you will always have, of course, decisions and announcements which are part of the longer-term trajectory.
Does it matter for NATO whether this decision of Trump is a military strategic one or purely a political one? To punish one country and to gain more?
Hey, listen, NATO is a political military alliance. So that's the big difference with China or Russia, where one person in the end takes all the decisions. We are a democratic alliance and a military alliance. And that means that decisions will always be informed by military and political considerations. That's how it works.
How can you guarantee that the
Basically, it is happening already. But I'm seeing, for example, the United States, the flow of US crucial gear into Ukraine continues. This includes, of course, vital anti-ballistic missile, anti-missile support, including for the Patriot systems, paid for by European allies, the famous Pearl program. It is continuing. The Europeans are paying for it. What I want to achieve is that the burden is more evenly spread. That there is more burden sharing here, because at the moment it is only 6 or 7 allies who are doing the heavy lifting. The good news is that what they do is enough to make sure that Ukraine keeps having the access to this crucial US equipment. But of course it would be fairer if within NATO, and particularly the European part of NATO, we could see other allies also stepping up. But when it comes to the support for Ukraine, and political support for Ukraine particularly, there is absolutely no discussion. We all see the necessity, and we see the Ukrainians doing remarkably well on the battlefield. Final question.
Yes, before you left the US also, Mr. Rode, you expressed disappointment with NATO not helping the US in the war in Iran and the Hormuz Strait situation. Will you talk about that, and what's your message?
No doubt, when foreign ministers meet, we will discuss all relevant events, all relevant developments, including, of course, the Strait of Hormuz, Iran. When I was in the United States early April, I also spoke with the President and the Secretary of State and the Secretary of War. I really sensed this disappointment. Let me also say that Europeans have heard the message. When it comes, for example, to European bases, and these are bilateral commitments by European countries with the United States, so that the United States can use these bilateral commitments for operations they have elsewhere in the world. When you look at Europe right now, over the last 2 months, massively, European countries have been living up to those commitments. I was in Bucharest last week and I saw firsthand, and you know that the Romanian government had to change even the legislation to make this possible, and it did this, I think, in 1 or 2 days. I saw the tankers on the airport of Bucharest, but the same is true for Bulgaria, Portugal, it's true for Greece, but also the bigger countries like Italy and UK and France and Germany. So they are all, when it comes to making their bases available, doing what the US could expect based on bilateral commitments. Then when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, next phase, what we are seeing is, and also here I think Europeans really heard the message, is many European countries making sure that they, let's say, pre-position some of their key ships and equipment close to theater. For example, demining equipment, demining ships, demining uncrewed systems, so that in that next phase we can be maximum helpful as European allies with the United States to see how we can make sure that the freedom of navigation, and this is what is at stake here, the Strait of Hormuz is at this moment choked off. And the free movement of navigation is seriously under threat here. So, of course, this is an interest also for all allies, not for NATO maybe as an alliance, but clearly wherever we can help, we will be there. Thank you so much. And see you later at the press.
Você comigo ao salão da Minas Gerais.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sweden, welcome to Skåne, welcome to Helsingborg. We are so happy to host you. When we joined NATO just over 2 years ago, our Prime Minister said we are finally coming home to the alliance of peace and freedom, and I'm so glad that the alliance is now coming home to me. And we meet in turbulent times with the war in Europe and very uncertain events, a chain of events in the Middle East. And it is important to follow up on the defense investment commitments that we made in The Hague, and Sweden is definitely doing its part, aiming to reach 5% at 2030 instead of 2035. And to us, it's extremely important to also follow up on the support to Ukraine that needs to be bigger and long-lasting. I very much look forward to the discussions today, and once again, a warm welcome to Sweden.
Before leaving to Sweden, Secretary Rubio insisted once again that the U.S. is disappointed about the behaviors of NATO allies regarding Iran and Don't you fear, or why don't you fear that this meeting will be overshadowed by such a meeting?
I heard what he said. I definitely think that this will be discussed today. I think it's a good opportunity also to meet and discuss this eye to eye. I know that they have been disappointed, but it is also still true that we were not consulted before, but now we're looking ahead, and in the next phase we will be happy to contribute to make sure that there is a protection of the freedom of navigation in the strait, which is also in our Swedish interest.
Overnight, President Trump reversed the decision apparently to pull troops or to stop the rotation to Poland, and now says they'll put 5,000 back in. How confusing is that for allies that you don't really know what the U.S. contingent is going to be, especially as you're deployed in Latvia, so this makes a big difference along the front lines where also.
Well, it is confusing indeed, and not always easy to navigate. I guess you feel the same as I do. But we need to continue to focus on what we do and not what everyone else says. So we need to continue to invest in our own defense and our own capabilities. We need the US to stay involved, but it's also natural that as we ramp up, they also reduce a little of their presence in Europe. I welcome if they increase their presence in Poland, since it's on the eastern flank where we have the big threat, just like you said.
Do you understand more clarity from Mr. Rubio on that to US in Europe? And is TikTok via social media the best way to decide the future of the US defense in Europe?
I think that what we now are doing is historical. We should have done this a long time ago. Show that Europe is worth protecting, and that we should also commit to protecting Europe. I mean, this is something that the American administrations have asked us to do since Eisenhower, I believe, and now we're finally doing this. But we should do this together, make sure that we have contingency plans and that we know what everyone is supposed to do. And maybe social media negotiation is not the best thing.
Secretary Rubio and Hexe have been absent from the last few NATO ministerials. Has it happened in the world since then? Do you think it's helpful that Secretary Rubio is going to be present today to be able to discuss things face to face?
Of course, I'm very grateful that he will be attending today. It is important. It's been a while since we met in Brussels, and a while since the US was present at the highest level. So I look forward to having thorough discussions today, and also preparing for the meeting in Ankara that we want to be a success, of course.
Can you explain just in basic terms why it's important for
Oh, because this is where it happens, and this is where we can have really genuine conversations and be also very frank to each other, and that is exactly what we need, because we are now in the most difficult security situation since the end of the Second World War. We need to stay strong, stay together, and make sure that we have a strong deterrence against Russia. In order to do that, we need to be on the same page, and in order to do that, we need to meet. I'm convinced. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Today we have a very important meeting among the foreign ministers of NATO, and I can assure as one of the eastern border member of NATO that NATO works well. Because if you see during the last couple of weeks we have more and more drones coming into our territories. Ukraine drones, but the responsible of that is Russia, because Russia is waging the aggressive war against Ukraine, and Russia is guiding these drones to NATO territory. So we saw that NATO is working very well. The Romanian fighters took down one drone in Estonia, and it is a sign that actually it is working as a clockwork. It's united. All the plans what we have, they are solid, and it shows as well the unity. But I want to say one thing, is Russia is now using this opportunity to tell the fake news, total fake news, that NATO allows to use Ukraine, our territories, or NATO states as Baltic states, and also Finland, we are allowed to use our territories for these attacks against Russia. And this is fake news, because we don't allow it. But I want to assure you that Ukraine has all the rights to attack these targets deep in Russia, which are supporting this war of aggression against them. So I think that Ukraine is continuing. Of course, they must be more careful, but all the responsibilities is relying on Russia in this regard. Because Putin can stop this war tomorrow, but he's not changing the goals, unfortunately. But in real life, Putin is in trouble because his economy is not working well. And if you see our region, so this gas and oil export through the Baltic Sea, it's close to 60%. It is lifeline for him, and Ukraine is hitting very heavily this corner. And that's why I see that as well. Putin is trying to divide Western unity, and as well trying to push all of us to put more pressure on Ukraine, stop these attacks, deep strike sanctions, as Ukrainians says. So, but this is the right way to go forward, to put more pressure on Russia. So this is about Ukraine. The second thing is I'm very happy that now Secretary General Rutte has put on the table as well Estonia proposal already a couple of years ago, a long-time commitment for the allies, 0.25% of GDP military support. It is so important that we give this message and also the real commitment to Ukraine, because Russia will remain a threat. And we don't see that Putin is changing the goals very soon, and this kind of cooperation about military support as well, the investments to defense industry are very crucial. So I do hope that all NATO allies will share the burden which the Nordic Baltics and some other countries are already doing right now. About 5% of GDP. We are all happy about this commitment last year in The Hague, and we now facing the Ankara meeting. Estonia is doing the real defense spendings already this year, 5.2, 5.4% of GDP. And these are we are following the plans we adopted already in Vilnius 2 years ago about the NATO new regional defense plans. And NATO must show unity in Ankara. We are talking about this because it is so important that we do everything in coordinated ways. It's about deterrence, which is of course important for us, but as well we need to build the real capabilities. So the defense capability targets are as well something we are focusing in, because this is a so-called we're measuring the commitment from all the different member states. So on Hormuz, as you know, Estonia was one of the first countries who said that if our allies need our support, we're always ready to commit, because if we need our allies, so we expect exactly the same, and we have done it through the history, as you know. And as well now we are ready to participate in different missions if the time is right with our commitments. So, and we'll discuss as well what can we do more, because Hormuz must be opened and secured, because this is a part of our economy and trade. We all pay more, and it's not good to have this kind of military conflict in this region. So thank you very much.
Minister Salman, are you worried
Sorry?
about the 700 troops that are based in Estonia, U.S. troops, and what's the meaning of the reversal in President Trump's announcement? Are you concerned about the deployment in Estonia?
I'm not a concerned person. I'm very practical. Yesterday evening we heard as well and saw the President Trump's tweet about 5,000 extra troops to Poland. So this is one defense theater. It's all connected to each other. But of course, everything what we are talking about, NATO deterrence as well, US troops in Europe, it's a full picture, and it must happen whatever happens with coordinated ways. And of course, we are not only talking about Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, we are talking about the eastern flank and Europe And this is my message as well to US partners, is that let's do it more coordinated ways.
How do you deal with the lack of predictability from the US side?
That's the reason why we are gathering today here as well to talk face to face. But if I said as well, this is about US to decide how many troops are in Europe. It's clear that Europe must do more, and we are more committed, not only about money, but the defense industry, troops. And, but everything what concerns the NATO deterrence and capabilities, it must be happening in coordinated ways. Thank you. I will be pushed away.
Can somebody check the mic, because it's really not so easy to hear what you're saying? Good morning.
Bonjour. Marche pas. Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everybody. It's wonderful to be here. Je suis très contente de vous voir ce matin ici à Suède. I'm just back from Latvia, where I was visiting the Canadian Armed Forces troops who are on the ground as Canada's largest overseas military operation. And in this moment where the Baltic states are on NATO's Eastern Front, Canada stands strongly with NATO and with the Baltic states. I just concluded a 3+1, in fact, with the Baltic states to reinforce Canada's commitment not only to NATO, but also to the Baltic states themselves. I also want to indicate that we are here to discuss several important issues comme homologue, comme collègue du pays de l'OTAN, et on va avoir des conversations sur la défense collective et aussi qu'est-ce que nous pouvons faire avant le sommet en juillet. We're building up to that summit, and obviously this meeting of foreign ministers is extremely important so that we can together ensure the unity of the NATO alliance. And in that vein, Canada is going to be working consistently throughout this meeting today and in advance of the NATO summit in Ankara on the Defense, Security, and Resilience Bank. That is a collective effort that we are leading, as Canada was already the host of the negotiations for the Charter. Those negotiations have been concluded, a Charter is in place, and now we are working on having additional countries join the membership of the bank. And just to clarify what that bank is, it is a pooling mechanism for capital for small and medium-sized enterprises to scale up in terms of their defense production and manufacturing. And we believe that it would be very beneficial in order for supply to meet demand for there to be this pooling mechanism. Canada's already met NATO's 2% of GDP. We are on track to meet 5% of GDP by 2035. Et on va continuer d'être solide et unis avec nos partenaires de l'OTAN. And finally, I will say that we are also here to express our solidarity in the short and the long term with Ukraine. Canada has put on the table $25.5 billion in multiple forms of support for Ukraine, military, humanitarian, economic, financial support. And we are one of the world's largest per capita donors to Ukraine to date. We've trained over 47,000 members of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. We have an initiative to bring the Ukrainian children home from Russia, where they are being indoctrinated after having been stolen from their families. We will be holding a summit for the return of Ukrainian children in Toronto on September 28th and 29th to follow up on the summit that we held last week in Brussels. Donc, avec ça, je pourrais recevoir vos questions. Merci beaucoup.
With such a strong deployment at Geopolitics along the eastern flank, how therefore also in the Baltics?
So one of the reasons I wanted to go to Latvia, and I was also in Estonia, was to underscore the solidity, the long-term nature of Canada's presence on the eastern flank. Operation Reassurance, as I indicated, is our largest overseas military operation, and we have recently indicated that we have extended it to 2029. And so this is a moment where Canada is expressing solidarity with the Baltic states, and in particular vis-a-vis our brigade level multinational effort in Latvia. And in particular, as a former Minister of National Defense, I would like to say that the cooperation between all of the 14 member countries, this is the largest multinational group on the Eastern front, and we are very much together as countries. 14 countries working together every day to ensure the defense and security of NATO's eastern flank. That's, in my mind, one of the most important lessons that we should take as NATO countries from the work that we're doing together every single day. The United States is obviously fundamentally important to the functioning of NATO, and we will look forward to welcoming Secretary Rubio today and to the conversations that we will have. We're also having a meeting of the A7, the Arctic 7 countries after the NATO foreign ministers meet, and I'm very much looking forward to speaking about the necessity of cooperation in defending and protecting the Arctic region. We, Canada, opened a consulate in Nuuk, Greenland in February to stand strongly with Greenland and Denmark in their sovereignty and territorial integrity, but really protecting and defending the Arctic, especially against the Russian threats that are moving further and further north towards the Arctic Circle, is a collective effort, and we need to ensure that NATO continues to understand and work in defense of the Arctic region. And I've been speaking with Secretary General Rutte about this extensively, I will say, as well as the Nordic Five, to make sure that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is also focused on the North Atlantic and the Arctic. This is fundamentally important, and we actually look forward to opening another consulate in Anchorage, Alaska this year. I'll come back. So let me just say that our relationship with Sweden bilaterally is extremely strong. We welcomed the King and Queen earlier this year to Canada, and I was fortunate enough to be able to meet them at the Governor General's residence. And of course, I had a bilateral meeting with my counterpart yesterday right here to reinforce and underscore the strength of our relationship along multiple axes and in multiple sectors. And so again, we'll look forward to continuing this work across all sectors. And at this point, that's all I will say on that. Pardon me?
What are your thoughts about Sweden hosting this meeting in the 2 years after its NATO?
Okay, well, this is a great question, okay? Because when Sweden was indicating that it was going to become a member of NATO, I was actually the Minister of National Defense at the time. And so it was at the summit in Madrid that we received the news that Sweden had decided to work towards accession to NATO. And this was an absolutely historic moment for all of the ministers and countries around the table. And we very much celebrated the fact that Sweden had decided to join, and Finland as well. It was a moment of great joy in the alliance to welcome 2 new members. And I will just say now to be in this incredible country and town, it's a moment of unity and it's a moment of pride. Our work on Hormuz is very much focused on supporting the Gulf countries and the need for freedom of navigation and the support of international law in the Strait of Hormuz. Canada is working very closely with the UK-France coalition, and once there is a permanent ceasefire, we will look forward to supporting in any way possible, demining expertise, other cyber and logistics capabilities that the Minister of National Defense is leading. And at this moment, I'm sure we will have at this meeting today a number of discussions about NATO's role and the unity of NATO going forward. This is fundamentally important, and I believe I'm being called off the stage, so thank you very much, and I'll see you in July. Take care.
Very good morning, everybody. I will speak in English, but I'll say 2 sentences in Norwegian for the Swedish press. Det fantastisk for en nordmann å være på NATO-møte i Sverige. Dette har vi gledet oss til i veldig mange år. Det fantastisk bra for vår sikkerhet, Sveriges og Finlands sikkerhet, at Sverige og Finland nå medlemmer i denne alliansen, og det at vi for første gang har et utenriksministermøte i Sverige veldig bra. What I just said was that I'm very happy as a Norwegian that we can have a NATO meeting here in Sweden. That's something we Norwegians have been longing for many years, so welcome. That's really good. Today's meeting is very important. We will discuss the path towards Ankara. What we are now seeing is the development of the idea of a NATO 3.0. My reading of that is that NATO 1.0 was NATO during the Cold War. Then we had some years where much of our activity was out of area and outside of Article 5 and a number of international operations in faraway places. What we're seeing in 3.0 is that we are back in the transatlantic area. We're back as a defensive alliance. We are back focusing on Article 5, and we're back preparing for actual war in order to deter war. And what came out of the Hague summit last year was an agreement that was both to invest 5% in defense and security. That's 3.5 for pure defense and 1.5 for other security-related activities. But also to be very clear that Russia is the defining threat. It's not the only threat, but it's the defining threat. And that's important because as a current Minister of Foreign Affairs, but a former Minister of Defense, I know that the defense forces need to know what to plan for. What are the scenarios? What are the challenges? What are the issues to plan for? And knowing that we need to do more in Europe, that we need to strengthen our collective defense capabilities, but also what type of war to plan for is massively important if you want to use your money right. Because spending more money is a good thing, but it's particularly important that you're able to prioritize. And that means that the money that we will now be spending has to be spent in a way that is smart, strategic, and common and joint. And that we also make sure that we strengthen our defense industries, because Economy 101 tells you that if you just increase the demand without also increasing the supply, you will not have more defense, just more expensive defense. So we also need to do more together in defense industries in order to be able to fulfill this. The most important challenge on the military side is that Europe needs to to build some of these enabling capacities that almost only the US have been having until now, because we have a lot of military aircraft, we have frigates, we have submarines, we have significant military capacity on this continent, but we need all those capacities that make them effective: strategic intelligence, tactical intelligence, tanker planes, etc. So these are important practical elements of moving towards 3.0. I believe that a stronger Europe in a stronger NATO makes a lot of sense. We need a stronger European, including Canadian, dimension of this, and exactly doing that will make the US a more relevant partner, Europe also a more relevant partner for the US. Last thing I want to say is strong support for Ukraine. Norway is, together with all the Nordic countries and Germany and a few others, by the main contributors to Ukraine. We're proud of that, but we also want more countries to be engaged, and particularly now that the situation on the battlefield has improved somewhat for Ukraine. Russia is not in a good place. Ukraine is doing somewhat better. And we also recognize that Ukraine is becoming a security provider, because they are now actually the world leaders in anti-drone warfare, but also in drone warfare, and many of the new technologies that really have showed what war is like in the 21st century. So we need Ukraine. We need to make sure Ukraine will prevail in this war, but we also need Ukraine as a good partner, but also as a provider of security in the long run. So that will also be a theme here. I'm very happy to see my good colleague Sibi present. And the very last thing is that there will be an Arctic 7 meeting. Norway is an Arctic country. We have for many years wanted a stronger NATO focus on the Arctic. I'm very happy that all 7, including the United States and Canada and the Nordics, are coming together for a foreign ministers meeting in this A7 format, which is the Arctic 7. Thank you.
How do you intend to deal with the US lack of predictability?
So we hope that this process will lead to more predictability. We recognize that there is a desire to draw down the troop numbers. That has been said for a long time. What is important is that it happens in a structured manner, so that Europe is able to build up when the US reduces its presence. And this is very much what this 3.0 is all about. And when it comes to the military side of all this, I believe there are good dialogues on how we can make sure we have a good balance between the two.
How do you even know when the US is drawing down, when one day it's 5,000 out, the next day it's 5,000 back, and you're not even sure where they're coming from or where they're
I think we will primarily look at what's actually happening. There was a little back and forth on the 5,000 in Poland. I think now they are back, they are coming again. In the deeper structures of NATO, there are good dialogues on this, and I think it's important. I think it's a message to us Europeans that what has been said, not only by President Trump or President Biden or President Obama, but all the way back to Eisenhower, that Europe needs to do more, is now happening. And I'm happy to say that Europe is doing more. But then we're also reminding our good friends on the other side of the Atlantic that NATO is also good for them. And I can take one example. Just outside of the door of the northeast Norway, we have the Kola Peninsula. That's where most of the nuclear submarines, most of Russia's nuclear capacities. These nuclear weapons have the capacity to destroy almost all American cities. If you want to avoid that from happening in a war situation, you need a good partnership with NATO, because that's where they are. Well, I'm very happy he's here, and that we should use this meeting very constructively, because we should take this towards Ankara in a way that we will come out as a strengthened alliance with a stronger Europe in a stronger NATO. And I believe that we are on a good track in creating a conversation where that both sides feel confident about around that. We will have a conversation on what the US strategy and the European strategy be, and how the two can be aligned, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. I think I need to leave now. Thank you.
morning. I'm Latvian Foreign Minister Baiba Braže, and I'm starting by saying a huge thank you to our hosts, Sweden, for this absolutely marvelous occasion that we had last night, and also for perfectly organized informal ministerial. So it's all about work, and for us the most important thing is to pass that way towards the summit, and the summit should demonstrate really achievable goals for all allies, how we are moving towards the 5% target for GDP of defense. In Latvian case, we have enshrined in law 5% for defense of GDP. So in our case, that's already being implemented. And we currently are around 4.9%, so next year it will be above 5%. Plus, second part is defense industrial base. It's not enough just to have the 5%. We need actually the stuff that is needed for the armed forces. So overcoming those national sort of obstacles that each of the countries want to protect their own defense industry, creating these supply chains, creating the amount of what's needed for staff. The third part also for the capability targets that we all have. As part of NATO's defense plans, we have capability targets. We need to augment the modern technologies, the autonomous systems, everything around the warfare, as we are seeing that on the battlefield in Ukraine as part of our defenses, because Russia is learning too. It's not only Ukraine which has upgraded very much its capability, it's also Russia. So there is no more time to wait on that one also. So those are the main things, and of course yesterday we had Ukraine NATO Council, so I think that you all heard from Ukrainian Foreign Minister full support to Ukraine's self-defense and ability to hit targets within Russia. And indeed, we are grateful for all the allies coming out and denying Russia's accusations against the Baltic states, Finland, Poland. No, we are not letting Ukraine use our airspace or ground or sea. That's a fact. Thank you.
How do you intend to deal with the lack of US predictability as an ally?
Well, we talk a lot with the US. I mean, public statements is one thing, but the work is done behind the scenes.
So does that mean we knew about the 5,000 out and 5,000 in? And
we knew that the posture was being reconsidered, and now there's no change of posture for now. So we'll see. But again, we have to be ready on European side to have both forces, to have capabilities, to have the readiness, speed, everything. You know, when you look, I've been to the US, I think during my term now for more than 2 years, I'm minister, around 10 times, if not more. When you look at Europe from the US side, the demands are quite understandable. We all live in social welfare states. We all have lots of things that we do for our societies, but we also need to do that for defense. We need to defend those societies, so we have to devote money for defense.
how dangerous is the situation in Latvia right now?
How do you see this deferring announcement from the White House as a weakening of the deterrence of the NATO?
The commitment by all allies to NATO's sort of integrity and to deterrence and defense is absolute. So what the US is signaling, of course, is the same thing. Europe needs to step up. Europe needs to step up on spending, on capabilities, on industry. It's a natural demand. We should better listen. Latvia is fine. Latvia is safe. We take care of all the indicators, and you know, we know what we are doing, and we are not giving our airspace to Ukrainian drones. But in the same time, Ukraine has gained technology and ability, terminal velocity, to hit targets within Russia. They have that long-range capability. And that is why Russia is trying to pretend that somebody else is to be blamed. That it's the Baltic states, or Finland, or Poland, or somebody else. No, Russia should stop its war. And then there will be no attacks.
On the defense minister, is Latvia considering tweaking the Article 4?
It's not a military threat. It's misdirected Ukrainian drones by Russian electronic warfare. There have been, you know, very few drones, so we should be able to deal with them. It's not a military situation. It's just our own readiness and mindset and capabilities that needs to be handled. I thank you. I cannot confirm that. I cannot confirm that. Thank you so much.
Nou, ik zie de berichten ook en dat zal natuurlijk onderwerp zijn van de goede gesprekken die we vandaag gaan voeren met z'n allen.
Wat hoopt u dat de Amerikanen nu duidelijk gaan maken? Dat het misschien iets minder chaotisch hier gaat?
Nou, het gaat er niet zozeer om ook wat de Amerikanen ons duidelijk willen maken. Ik denk dat het belangrijk is dat wij ook laten zien dat we de zorgen van de Amerikanen goed snappen. Dat we fors meer investeren als Europese landen voor onze eigen veiligheid. En tegelijkertijd een overdracht van verantwoordelijkheden, van capaciteiten ook op een hele geordende, verantwoorde manier doen. En ik denk dat dat het belangrijkste is van de gesprekken die we voeren vandaag.
Same question in English. How difficult is it for NATO to make its plans that the United States is reversing its position in Europe?
I don't think it's difficult. We need to have a good conversation about that. It needs to be structured. It needs to be coordinated. But we fully understand the concerns of the US when it comes to the investments we did in the past for our own security. That is changing, and that's part of the conversation we will have today.
Is it structured and coordinated now?
It's going to be. That's part of the conversations. No, but it's going to be because that is what we need to decide on. What is the plan for the coming months, for the coming years, and I think that's part of the conversations we're going to have.
Sounds like wishful thinking. President Trump seems to be deciding this on a whim via new social. So how do you cope with that? Doesn't that unpick the glue that holds NATO together?
I'm not reacting my response or basing my response on tweets or whatever. For us, what is important to have a good dialogue, to have a good conversation, what we're going to have today, what we had yesterday as well, and that we continuously have also behind the scenes. So for us, the main aim is to have a coordinated approach and a coordinated plan for the burden shift, and I think we're able to do that together. Sorry? No, I think we're working on it very constructively, but that's also a part of the conversations we have today. Today is an important moment, and we're aiming to have a coordinated burden shift. Ik denk dat er voortdurend stevige gesprekken zijn, niet alleen met de Amerikanen, maar onder alle NAVO-bondgenoten. Maar het gesprek wat vandaag gesproken zal stevig zijn op de inhoud. En tegelijkertijd het uitgangspunt is de eenheid. En laten we ook niet vergeten dat het niet alleen de Europeanen zijn die het belangrijk vinden dat de VS bij de NAVO zit, maar dat er ook voor de VS heel veel belangen zijn om bij de NAVO te zitten. Kijk alleen al naar alle logistieke stromen die we de afgelopen weken ook gezien hebben richting het Midden-Oosten. Well, I'm certain that we will address the concerns by the US like we will address the concerns of any NATO member when we have these kind of meetings. For us, the aim is to have a coordinated burden shift, a coordinated approach, a plan, and that's what we work on. Well, currently the Netherlands is involved in the big international coalition. I think we should have a coordinated approach, but we stand ready to take our share, to take our responsibility for the freedom of navigation once the situation arrives, because the freedom of navigation for the Netherlands is unnegotiable. Well, I cannot say a lot about the specifics of the military planning. It also depends on the context and also of what others can do. It needs to be coordinated, but we're a seafaring nation. We have our knowledge, we have our expertise, and we're ready to contribute. I think it's always important that we do things in a coordinated way and a coordinated approach. And obviously NATO members are part of it, and I think we need the expertise of NATO there as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh.
Bonjour à toutes et tous, je suis très heureux d'être aujourd'hui à Helsingborg, en Suède, 4 mois après mon dernier déplacement à Malmö, où je m'étais rendu à bord du Charles de Gaulle avec les autorités suédoises, et surtout quelques jours après la décision historique qui a été prise par ces autorités de se tourner vers la France et vers Naval Group pour l'acquisition de frégates militaires pour un montant de 4 milliards d'euros, qui est évidemment une nouvelle majeure pour l'industrie de défense européenne, pour l'industrie de défense française et puis pour les chantiers navals de l'Orient. Une décision historique qui fait suite à une décision qu'avait prise la France de faire confiance à Saab, constructeur suédois, pour les avions d'alerte aérienne, dont la France a fait l'acquisition. Et vous voyez là que par l'acquisition réciproque d'équipements militaires, la France et la Suède démontrent la force de leur partenariat et illustrent la capacité qu'ont les Européens à développer une base industrielle et technologique de défense. Entre la France et la Suède qui s'approfondit, qui se renforce au fil du temps en matière opérationnelle, en matière capacitaire, mais aussi en matière stratégique, puisque la Suède fait partie des 8 pays qui, à ce jour, ont engagé, à l'invitation du président de la République, un dialogue stratégique dans le cadre de la dissuasion avancée que le président de la République a annoncé lors de son discours de l'île Longue du 2 mars dernier. Des nouvelles dont je me réjouis et qui contribuent à rendre l'Europe plus forte au service d'une OTAN elle-même plus forte. Je salue l'adoption il y a quelques jours par l'Assemblée nationale en première lecture de l'actualisation de la loi de programmation militaire avec 36 milliards d'euros de dépenses militaires supplémentaires entre 2026 et 2030 qui nous permettent de tenir la trajectoire et les engagements que nous avions pris au sommet de la Haye l'année dernière. Parce que dans le monde dans lequel nous vivons, nous avons plus que jamais besoin de ces mécanismes de solidarité qui nous lient avec nos principaux partenaires et voisins. De ce point de vue-là, les appels de certains responsables politiques français à un retrait de l'OTAN sont évidemment déraisonnables et totalement inconséquents. D'abord parce que, je le disais, la menace grandit. Certains de nos partenaires, et je pense en particulier aux États baltes, ces derniers jours sont harcelés en continu par l'agressivité de la Russie et ils vivraient comme une trahison une telle prise de distance avec une organisation qui, depuis 1949, nous a permis de dissuader, d'écarter toute forme de menace. D'autre part, parce que au moment où les États-Unis d'Amérique réévaluent le niveau de leur engagement, de leur présence sur le continent européen au sein de l'Alliance, eh bien c'est précisément l'opportunité pour la France et pour les Européens d'y développer leur vision, de développer leur capacité, bref, d'européaniser l'OTAN. Et puis enfin parce que la présence solide, forte de la France au sein de l'OTAN n'est en aucun cas incompatible avec d'autres initiatives que la France a pu prendre ces derniers mois. Je pense notamment à la coalition des volontaires que la France et le Royaume-Uni ont rassemblée, qui s'est réunie le 6 janvier dernier avec une planification militaire sans équivalent dans notre histoire récente qui permettra de garantir, une fois que la paix en Ukraine aura été trouvée, qu'elle soit véritablement durable. Une coalition de pays qui dispose d'un quartier général qui se trouve au Mont-Valérien à Paris, le quartier général de la force multilatérale Ukraine. Autre exemple, c'est le déploiement sans équivalent dans notre histoire récente de capacités militaires par la France en Méditerranée orientale dès les premiers jours de la guerre en Iran, avec comme premier objectif la protection de nos compatriotes, mais évidemment la protection de nos partenaires, de nos alliés, qui sont aussi les partenaires de la plupart des pays de l'OTAN. Ce déploiement de capacités démontre la capacité qu'a la France à tenir ses engagements, à être également une puissance de paix qui assure par cette capacité à prendre des initiatives la paix et la sécurité du monde. Et puis le dernier exemple que je voudrais citer et qui, à mon sens, est aujourd'hui très important, c'est l'initiative que le président de la République a lancée pour faciliter la reprise du trafic dans le détroit d'Ormuz en réunissant, là encore, une coalition pour former une mission internationale de pays volontaires mettant en commun des capacités militaires de déminage et d'escorte, de manière à ce que, une fois que les conditions le permettront dans le détroit d'Ormuz, dans une posture strictement défensive et en coordination avec les pays du détroit, eh bien que la reprise du trafic soit la plus rapide possible. Pourquoi ? Eh bien tout simplement parce que ce qui se passe à Ormuz, le Premier ministre l'a rappelé hier, a des conséquences très directes sur la vie quotidienne des Françaises et des Français, sur la vie de nos entreprises. Que ces conséquences doivent être limitées et c'est la raison pour laquelle cette mission internationale a tant d'importance. So we have been in close contact with the US administration on this international mission every step of the way, and I sense a true recognition of the value of such a gathering of countries putting together their military capacity, demining, escorting, in order for the resumption of maritime traffic to be as swift as possible, because everybody knows it, everybody feels it, the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, which is unacceptable in any circumstances and unjustifiable, has consequences for the daily lives of our co-citizens on each side of the ocean. Bien, je vous le disais, la révision par les États-Unis de leur niveau d'engagement sur le continent européen au sein de l'Alliance n'est pas une nouvelle récente. Cela fait maintenant des années disent que l'Alliance s'y prépare et que les Européens, depuis quelques années, prennent toutes leurs responsabilités. J'y vois là une opportunité de renforcer la place de l'Europe au sein de l'Alliance, d'européaniser cette Alliance, d'y développer capacité nos visions, de prendre nos responsabilités, une Europe plus forte dans une Alliance plus forte.
Est-ce que c'est le meilleur moyen de faire les choses en annonçant sur les réseaux sociaux des retraits, puis des ajouts de troupes? Est-ce que c'est la meilleure façon de traiter les alliés? Et qu'est-ce que vous allez demander là-dessus?
Vous savez, si je suis là aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas pour commenter des messages sur X, c'est précisément pour aborder avec l'ensemble des États membres de cette alliance la manière dont nous prenons, nous, Européens, une part plus importante de nos responsabilités. Je vous remercie donc pour vos questions et je me dirige à la salle de travail. Merci beaucoup.
Good morning. Romania arrives to the meeting of Ministers of Foreign Affairs with clear objectives on the security of the Black Sea and on the eastern flank. As you know, last week we hosted in Bucharest the Bucharest 9 summit alongside our Nordic allies, and we come here at the ministerial with a clear message on the need of having enhanced capabilities on the eastern flank, on the need to focus on maritime security. What we've discussed at the Bucharest 9 summit with our Nordic allies as well, and the participants from the United States, was the strategic continuum between the Black Sea, the Baltics, and the Nordics. And a case example of that has recently happened when the Romanian F-16 pilot has successfully shot down a drone over Allied space in a common air policing mission over the Baltic states. And we believe that is a clear example of how we are in the same time security providers to each other, but also relying on the common defense and deterrence factor of NATO. We're also gonna overview the commitments that we have taken in the Hague summit. In the case of Romania, our budget allocation for this year is close to 3.5%, 2.45% on actual procurement. We're going to have more than half of that budget on new capabilities. And in the case of Romania, we have a strong investment on strategic infrastructure, military mobility, also as a factor to use this moment of time and financing instruments to grow our economy. And we have more than 1.4% allocation this year in the budget in that direction. One of the sources of financing is actually the SAFE loan that the European Commission has signed yesterday with Romania. It's a 16.8 billion loan. And I'm mentioning this because one of the focus Romania always has in the EU and NATO conversations is the complementarity between the efforts that NATO has and the European Union has. We are strong supporters of the complementarity and strategic alignment of the decisions. One focus for Romania has been throughout the year and is in today's conversation as well, the way we answer together within NATO at hybrid threats. We're talking about hybrid threats that Russia is mostly posing, be it on land or sea, in the air, or otherwise in more complex environments. And we have worked in the last month alongside more than 10 allies to put forward proposals of a stronger coordinated response. We're going to host in Bucharest in October the hybrid symposium where experts from every allied come together to focus on the common answer we have within NATO. As we assess that the number and the intensity of hybrid threats, especially coming from Russia, is going to grow into allied space in the future. Thank you. If you have any questions.
So with the growing hybrid threats, what do you make of the U.S. signal that it may pull troops out, don't need more? Romania has already been subject of a drawdown. So does it unsettle you that it looks like the U.S. will, in any case, reduce its presence along the eastern flank?
Well, here it is quite clear that for some time we are preparing within NATO and, of course, within Europe to adapt to the new U.S. strategy, which in time is going to be an increased focus on Indo-Pacific and therefore an increased strength that is needed from European allies to protect our own space. That being said, it is very important to mention that from the withdrawal of the rotative troops, what we have done with the United States and within NATO as well is we have managed to increase other types of presence. In our case, what was important was our ability to monitor our airspace, especially as we have the longest border with the war in Ukraine, more than 650 kilometers, and alongside United States, we have managed to increase our capabilities there for defense. And also, of course, the recent examples of Romania allowing for access into our bases for defensive capabilities and logistical support is also an example where we think it is important to showcase that between allies we are security providers to each other rather than some allies relying on others unilaterally. And we believe that is a good example of a constructive relationship. Therefore, our conversation and the position Romania has is that it is a continuous need for U.S. presence on European territory. On Romania's case as well, we have had these conversations with our counterparts that we still think an increased need for capabilities is obvious on the eastern flank and specifically at the Black Sea. And why am I mentioning the Black Sea is we have there a demining experience together with Turkey and Bulgaria. We're at this moment able to share the experience that Romania has on demining, but also we believe it is essential that we protect the Black Sea together as it is a strategic energy source. Romania is now the number one natural gas producer in the European Union, and with the strategic projects at the Black Sea, we are going to increase that by 80%, allowing for more of the energy autonomy needed in the region to decouple from Russian energy sources. And we're also working with US on that in terms of energy transportation infrastructure. There are more initiatives now taking place. Romania has joined the UK-France coalition for opening the Strait of Hormuz, and we have also joined the diplomatic effort of the United States, the Maritime Freedom Initiative, and we're working alongside the Department of State and other countries in that direction. It is a conversation of whether part or significant parts of those conversations move into a NATO format. There's also a conversation we're having at the European Union level because there's already a maritime security mission that is not at the Strait of Hormuz but could be reallocated in that direction. And these conversations are developing, but on Romania's side, what I can say is that we have decided early on to get ourselves involved at the diplomatic level and also at an assessment of capabilities in the moment of a ceasefire and peace there, because although we do not have ships in the Strait of Hormuz, it is obvious for everyone that reopening the Strait of Hormuz is an imperative, not just for lowering the energy prices, but also to prevent a food crisis. And we have seen this in another moment in time where we were very close to a food crisis because we needed to find a way to allow for the cereals from Ukraine at the beginning of the war to be exported and reach countries that needed them, especially from Africa. And we have managed there to negotiate what were then called the security lanes through the Black Sea, and that has allowed for basically the world to see the prices of grain lower again. And we are also able to share part of that experience we have gained alongside the countries at the Black Sea. It's an ongoing conversation on all these formats. Something that's very important, though, is that these formats do not overlap or compete with each other, especially as many countries are involved in more than one. So one conversation we're having, I've had this conversation with Yvette Cooper from UK, we're having this conversation with United States as well, is to allow for the complementarity of these initiatives. Thank you.
So good morning. It's a pleasure to be in Helsingborg for what is a very important foreign ministerial meeting. First of all, it's an opportunity coming close to 1 year since the Hague summit to take stock of what has been achieved since Hague, but also in light of the upcoming very important summit in Ankara. We will be discussing several very important topics. First of all, we are taking stock in terms of our achievement when it comes to investments in the area of defense. We will be discussing our defense industries, but also equally important, we will be discussing the very diligent support that we have provided as an alliance for Ukraine and what our plans moving forward are. Of course, the situation in the Middle East will inevitably come up as well. And I will be insisting that we also discuss the Western Balkans, an area of Europe where there is serious malign influence coming from external factors and where security risks still exist. NATO is an alliance that is becoming stronger and stronger thanks to our commitment to 5% spending in defense. And in that sense, I think that today we will have an opportunity to discuss many of the challenges that the alliance has, but also the opportunities in front of the alliance. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So we have one big task in front of us for NATO to put the money where our mouth is and to invest into defense. Without investment, there will be no proper deterrence and there will be no peace. So this is the answer. The other thing, from Helsingborg to Ankara, we have to show the unity of alliance, to show to ourselves, prove it to ourselves, and also show to our adversaries that we are united as never, that transatlantic bond is effective and it's working, and this is how we will continue. There are a couple of more things that we will be talking today. The first, that NATO is, and NATO security is indivisible. So this week only in Lithuania we had twice air alerts because of the drones interfering into our airspace. And it shows that we have to increase our posture on the front line, we have to strengthen our air defense, and we have to also add counter-drone capabilities into everything that we have on the front line. We cannot remain living with the gaps in our airspace. And meanwhile, together with this, we hear the accusations, false accusations coming from Russia that Baltic countries are enabling these operations and enabling Ukrainian attacks on the targets deep in Russia. This is absolutely false. Lithuania has nothing to do and never allowed its territory or airspace being used for these kind of attacks. What we have to do in proper to step up what concerns our security is to strengthen Eastern Sentry, Baltic Sentry, but not only within NATO. We have tools within European Union also. We have to implement faster Eastern Flank Watch initiative and also introduce the new instrument to strengthen the resilience on the Eastern front line. This is very much needed. The second thing, that's for Europe to step up. We have main threat, Russia. That is 360, from Arctic down to Mediterranean, from cyber to space. So we have to step up also our capabilities. It's for us to take more share on our shoulders. Third, Ukraine. Ukraine is defending now the first contact line. And we have to support them with everything that we have. Before Ankara summit, we expect that there will be the instrument that would allow us to share the support to Ukraine evenly and in fair way. It cannot be left only for some of the allies. And the final element, and the topic, that is defense industry. We have to make it more open for the North American, our allies. We have to make it really mobile and without the bureaucratic additional barriers in it. Thank you.
Lithuania is very affected by deployments in Poland. So with this reversal by the United States, do you have any clarity on exactly what the U.S. presence is going to be, not just in Poland, but also in Lithuania? Have you had any news about the soldiers that are there?
We heard the news from Washington this morning or this night already. So we believe and strongly believe that it's in the United States' interest to have deployments in Europe. That is the most effective way what concerns deterrence. That is the cheapest way to keep the continent in peace. And it is also the benefits militarily for United States. It is in our interest to have them at the very front line because this is the most effective deterrence. And we provide the best host nation support, the state-of-art smart housing, and all the conditions what concerns training there. So I believe that there will be the long-lasting solution as we are hearing indicators right now. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to say how delighted I am to be at my first NATO ministerial in Sweden. And I wanted to thank our Swedish hosts for the wonderful venue, their majesties for their gracious invitation to their summer residence, and their participation in our informal supper last night, which centered around Ukraine. We were briefed by Minister Sybiha. Things are looking up. We hope that Vladimir Putin recalculates now that Ukraine has been granted additional resources by the European Union and that weapons are flowing for which Europe pays from the United States. Today we will prepare for the NATO summit in Ankara. Poland, as you know, together with Lithuania, is the largest spender in NATO, 4.7% of GDP last year, 4.8% this year. And I have an additional reason for confidence this morning. I want to thank President Trump for his announcement that the rotation, the presence of American troops in Poland will be maintained more or less at previous levels. I want to thank the President and everybody who contributed to these decisions, our friends in Congress, Ambassadors Whitaker and Rose in NATO and Poland, and of course all the Polish officials that have contributed. I think Poland's reputation as a country that takes defense seriously also helps. So I think we are going to have a lively and important ministerial. Thank you. All's well that ends well. Thank you very much. I think this makes Putin very uncomfortable. Thank you.
I will speak first in Spanish, and then, of course, I will address any question in English. Estamos en un momento crucial para la seguridad euroatlántica en el que nos enfrentamos a lo que es la mayor crisis mundial de este siglo. La agresión Rusia contra Ucrania continúa. Ayer tuvimos un Consejo OTAN-Ucrania en el que volvimos a reafirmar todo nuestro apoyo a Ucrania y en ese sentido España ha comprometido 50 millones de euros nuevos extras al mecanismo PURL para garantizar la defensa ucraniana y tenemos una situación en nuestra vecindad sur, un concepto que España introdujo en el concepto estratégico de la OTAN durante la cumbre en Madrid, que es extraordinariamente preocupante y que también tiene que estar en nuestras mentes. La unidad euroatlántica, la unidad en la OTAN sigue siendo fundamental. España es un socio absolutamente comprometido con la seguridad euroatlántica. 2.000 soldados desplegados en estos momentos en el flanco este, garantizando también la seguridad de los cielos bálticos, en Eslovaquia, en Rumanía, en misiones en el Mediterráneo, también en misión OTAN en Irak, que en estos momentos estamos liderando con una batería Patriot en Turquía. Y estamos cumpliendo con lo que acordamos en Gales, con nuestro gasto en defensa, y estamos cumpliendo también con la entrega de las capacidades. Por lo tanto, España, un aliado clave y comprometido con la seguridad euroatlántica y con la seguridad del flanco este y de la vecindad sur. No, I don't expect it because Spain is a totally committed ally to NATO. We have a historical deployment of troops in the eastern flank, 2,000 soldiers, more than 4,000 soldiers all over the world. We are leading the NATO mission in Iraq. We are present in the mission in the Mediterranean. Our aeroplanes guarantee the security of the Baltics. We have a Patriot battery in Turkey also to be committed to the security of our southern flank that we know very, very well. And Spain is a country that always delivers what we commit. We have right now a defense expenditure of 2.1, which is more than some of the allies. We have committed and given all the capacities that we have been requested by NATO. Not all the allies can say the same thing. So there is one thing about saying what you are going to do and not doing it, which some do, or what Spain does. We have a word, and when we say that we are going to deliver, we deliver. And you can look at the numbers of soldiers, at the number of missions in which we are involved, and our defense expenditure. We have done the highest increase in defense expenditure of all governments in democracy. We got the defense expenditure in 0.9 and we are in 2.1, and in delivering capacity. I wish all the allies did like Spain. En absoluto, nadie me pregunta por ese asunto, y lo que sí, he tenido varios encuentros bilaterales ya con mi colega canadiense, mi colega de la República Checa. Ayer en la cena estuve hablando con todos ellos. Todo el mundo lo que señala es la solidez de la posición internacional de España. Todo el mundo aplaude nuestra política exterior humanista, basada en la coherencia, que dice lo mismo en Ucrania, que en Gaza, que en Líbano, en cualquier lugar del mundo, y frente a cualquiera, cuando se ve también nuestro crecimiento económico, el mayor de la Unión Europea, con un récord de empleo, 22 millones de personas en la seguridad social, todo eso hace que la posición de España, no podía ser de otra manera, por supuesto, sea una posición sólida. Y aquí en la OTAN, un país como España, un país fiable, que siempre cumple lo que dice, 2,1% de gasto en defensa. No todos los países pueden estar en ese nivel de gasto, a pesar de que digan que van a dar mucho más. Todas las capacidades pedidas por la OTAN las hemos entregado. No todos los aliados de la OTAN hoy en la sala podrán decir lo que yo sí puedo decir con la cabeza muy alta. Y un despliegue histórico de soldados. Solamente en el flanco este, 2.000, participando en misiones en el Mediterráneo, una batería Patriot en Turquía. Ojalá todos los aliados de la OTAN tuvieran el compromiso con la seguridad atlántica de España. Ninguno, no hay ninguno, ni hay ningún indicio en ese sentido. Hablemos en serio. Thank you. ¿Quién? Perdón. No puedo hablar en nombre del Gobierno de los Estados Unidos, yo puedo hablar en nombre del Gobierno de España. España es un aliado comprometido en la OTAN y creemos en la seguridad euroatlántica y vamos a seguir comprometidos con ella. A los medios españoles, si queréis, nos podemos poner a un lado y os hablo de la flotilla. Muchas gracias.
A very good morning. We are here to work for peace and freedom. Finland is on track to reach the 5% defense spending target as set forth in the NATO summit last year in The Hague. And it's so important that each and every ally, especially in Europe and Canada, now ramps up not only its deterrence and defense for the use of the entire alliance and the freedom of this world, but at the same time also works on its defense industry on a basis that we would have even a single market within the alliance. Now, what Russia is doing is completely unacceptable, not only through its full-scale war of aggression against Ukraine, but also the latest disinformation campaign against the Baltic states. Let me be very, very clear. NATO is a threat to Russia. Russia is a threat to world peace. And we would like to have nothing else but a peaceful relationship with Russia. And we hope that Russia goes back to adhering to international law and withdraws its troops from Ukraine. And I hope in the very near future as well, we will have Ukraine as a member in NATO, also defending freedom and peace, but most certainly the values which we hold dear, democracy, the rule of law, and individual liberties. Thank you so much.
As a country along the eastern flank, does the unpredictability and uncertainty of what the U.S. is doing with its own troop presence make planning hard? Does it make you nervous?
It doesn't make us nervous. You see, Finland is used to living close to an unpredictable neighbor, and we have certainly always invested quite heavily in our defense and deterrence. And again, not to threaten anybody, but to make sure that our population, but also our partners and friends, can live in freedom and liberty. So we hope that also through this ministerial meeting, which we will be holding today, we will be able to compare notes on how together we are better positioned to achieve that goal. And certainly it helps that now each and every European nation as well, including Canada, is making significant steps towards higher defense spending. Well, NATO has currently 32 members, and certainly the United States is the most significant and the most important one. And the United States is not withdrawing from NATO. On the very contrary, again, we will be hearing today Secretary Rubio committing the United States to NATO. And at the same time, it's so important that we in Europe really take the situation seriously. Russia is a threat to world peace, and therefore we really need to be able to pull our own weight when it comes to defending Europe and the values which we hold dear. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Italy is a strong supporter of NATO. We want to do more as Italians and as Europeans. We are ready for spending more. We want to achieve the 5% of the GDP. But at European level, we need more flexibility for energy. We need to have the same rules for Italy, for defense and for energy in this difficult moment for European and every economy in the world. On NATO, we want to strengthen the European pillar. We believe in European defense. As I said, we need to do more. On defense industry, of course, Italy is in favor to buy European, but also to buy among friends. Friends are UK, United States, Japan, and the other countries, part of the G7 and the NATO. But this is very, very important to have one strong pillar is America, the second strong pillar is Europe. On Ukraine, we need to do what is important for strengthening the Ukrainian position. We are in favor of Ukraine full member of the European Union, but we need to pave the way for achieving this goal, and we are ready as Italy for doing more, for respecting the European rules. But the goal is to have Ukraine full member of the European Union with the Western Balkans. This is very important for us. Also, we need to pave the way for the next important meeting in Turkey on NATO. We need to work all together for achieving good results, because NATO is crucial. It's not only a military agreement, it's a political agreement. NATO is crucial for peace. Without NATO, it's difficult to strengthen peace in the world. For this, we need to look also at the south. Not only we need to look at East, but we need to look also at the south. Africa is very important for us. We need a strong NATO engagement in the south of the Mediterranean Sea, but also we need to look at Africa. Thank you.
Voilà, nous sommes aujourd'hui accueillis par la Suède et finalement, en soi, c'est un des résultats de la guerre d'agression lancée par M. Poutine. Il y a 4 ans, la Suède n'était pas membre de l'OTAN. Aujourd'hui, c'est elle qui nous accueille. Ça veut dire que l'un des résultats, c'est plus d'OTAN, plus d'Europe, plus d'unité. Une unité d'ailleurs que nous devons préserver. Je pense que nous n'avons rien à gagner à laisser apparaître sur la scène internationale et publiquement qu'il puisse y avoir des dissensions entre les alliés de l'OTAN. Les seuls qui profitent alors de ce spectacle avec un peu de pop-corn, c'est précisément les leaders iraniens ou le président Poutine. Je pense que cette réunion doit donc pouvoir aussi préparer un sommet à Ankara où l'unité de l'OTAN va être réaffirmée sans aucun doute, avec, il est vrai, un partage aussi de la charge et de la responsabilité mieux équilibré, avec une Europe qui prend en charge sa part, non pas parce que c'est exigé par quiconque, mais parce que c'est nécessaire vu la menace qui subsiste venant de Russie. On l'a vu encore récemment avec les menaces proférées à l'égard de la Lituanie, de l'Estonie ou de la Lettonie, et donc la Belgique redit sa solidarité. Une Belgique qui revient sur la scène. Nous avons longtemps été un mauvais élève, il faut bien le reconnaître, de nos contributions à l'OTAN. Nous avons fait un effort substantiel, proportionnellement le plus conséquent de l'ensemble des alliés. Nous sommes maintenant au fameux 2%, auquel s'ajoute 1,5% supplémentaire d'investissement en matière de sécurité et de défense complémentaire. La Belgique est un partenaire engagé. Nous avons des troupes qui sont présentes en Roumanie pour renforcer le flanc est du continent. Nous avons aussi des avions qui sont mobilisés dans l'espace aérien islandais ou balte, notamment pour la sécurité de l'Arctique. Nous avons arraisonné une flotte fantôme russe pour pouvoir la sanctionner et nous sommes aussi présents dans la coalition qui est menée par la France et la Grande-Bretagne avec un chasseur de mines pour pouvoir aussi intervenir de manière défensive lorsque les conditions le permettront dans la sécurisation des flots maritimes dans le détroit d'Ormuz. Donc, Belgium is back, ça c'est certainement le message important pour ce qui nous concerne par rapport aux réserves que j'avais pu exprimer l'an dernier sur notre capacité budgétaire de le faire, mais aujourd'hui, plus que jamais, les temps requièrent cet investissement et cette fiabilité. Je vous remercie.
Kommer gående nu.
Yes, 9:45, 10 dollars to the table, and I will give the signal. And then we start all in the corner.
Lyssnar. Ja, jag har med mig ett helt batteripack här. Nu kommer de. Kan jag zooma in?
Hi. Um 11 Uhr macht jemand anders die Schaltung. Ich habe gesehen, also ich brauche mich jetzt nicht mehr darum zu kümmern. Alles klar. Okay. Alles klar. Gut. Danke. Ciao.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't get that to you. No idea what that is. It's for both. For the tripod. We need 4 then. Yeah. We'll get you another one.
So, good morning again, and good morning again, Marco Rubio. We really appreciate you being here today. We had a first discussion. We will now continue with, of course, the NATO foreign ministers. And the meeting will very much concentrate on a couple of issues also on your mind and the President's mind, which has to do with the defense spending. The good news is the money is now coming in. Defense spending is rapidly ramping up, building on the success of the Hague summit. Tens of billions, and over the years there's hundreds of billions coming in. That also leads us to the question how to spend it, to make sure that it is spent well, and that brings us to the big issue of the defense industrial base, which is not producing enough. This is a problem in Europe, this is a problem in the US, and this will be a big issue at the Ankara summit. But there are huge opportunities here. We have to produce more to maintain our deterrence and defense, but there are also big in terms of the defense dividend societal effects here in terms of jobs, new factories opening up, new production lines across the Atlantic, and even more fostering the transatlantic bond. And of course Ukraine will be on the agenda today, making sure that Ukraine stays strong in the fight. And I again want to thank the United States for the fact that the critical flow of US military support to Ukraine in terms of, for example, the interceptors for Patriot systems continues to go, paid for by European and Canadian allies, and it is really vital for Ukraine to stay strong in the fight. Obviously today we have foreign ministers here, so we will discuss foreign issues, and one of the big issues now, of course, is Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the issue of freedom of navigation, and I hear from many of my colleagues here that it is not acceptable that the freedom of navigation is basically trampled upon as it is at the moment, and we have to think how we collectively can deal with this. And I think everybody acknowledges that the United States degrading the nuclear capability of Iran, but also the long-range missile capability of Iran is crucial for the Middle East, for Europe, for the whole world. So again, Marco, thank you for being here, for your incredible leadership, and being such a staunch supporter of our transatlantic bond.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you to this great country for hosting us. They've been phenomenal hosts. They've been great new members of NATO's really model allies and great hosts. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's always great to see you, Mark. And obviously, we're here to set the groundwork for what I think will be probably one of the more important leaders summit in the history of NATO. The President's views, frankly, disappointment at some of our NATO allies and their response to our operations in the Middle East. They're well documented. That will have to be addressed. They won't be solved or addressed today. That's something for the leaders level to discuss. In the meantime, there are other areas where we continue with cooperation. You saw the President's announcement last night with regards to Poland and deployment. That said, obviously the United States continues to have global commitments that it needs to meet in terms of our force deployment, and that constantly requires us to re-examine where we put troops. This is not a punitive thing. It's just something that's ongoing, and it was pre-existing, all these recent reports and tensions and so forth. So that's a process that will continue, that I think in a very positive and productive way, and collaboration with our allies can reach decisions. But in the end, you know, like any alliance, it has to be good for everyone who's involved. It has to be a clear understanding of what the expectations are, and so certainly we'll try to lay the groundwork for that. One of the areas where I think we definitely can cooperate on is the defense industrial base. It is clear to the world, to all of us in the alliance and beyond, that We simply are not able to produce munitions today at a rate that are necessary for future needs. That's something that has to be addressed. That's something that we can work together on. That's something we want to work together on. I think it's key not just to production, but to interoperability. And so I imagine that'll be a topic of conversation. On the issue of Iran, the news this morning, I know it's early on that's still in the United States, a little later in the region, in the Middle East. But we await word on those conversations that are ongoing. There's been some slight progress. I don't want to exaggerate it, but there's been a little bit of movement, and that's good. The fundamentals remain the same. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. It just cannot. This regime can never have nuclear weapons. And to achieve that, we're going to have to address the issue of enrichment. We're going to have to address the issue of the highly enriched uranium. And then added to this, of course, is the issue of the Straits. Iran is trying to create a tolling system. They're trying to convince Oman, by the way, to join them in this tolling system in an international waterway. There is not a country in the world that should accept that. I don't know of a country in the world that's in favor of it except Iran, but there's no country in the world that should accept it. Right now at the United Nations, we have a resolution that is sponsored by Bahrain. We've been very involved with it. It has the highest number of co-sponsors of any resolution ever before the Security Council. Unfortunately, a couple of countries on the Security Council are thinking about vetoing it. That would be lamentable. We are doing everything we can, though, to achieve the sort of global consensus that's necessary to prevent this from happening. And we're trying to use the United Nations. Let's see if the United Nations still works. It's a place that we're going to try to get an outcome for. And obviously, I think almost every country represented here today has signed on as a co-sponsor of that resolution. And if they haven't, I'm sure they soon will. Because I don't know of anyone in the world that should be in favor of a tolling system in an international waterway. That's just not acceptable. It can't happen. If that were to happen in the Straits of Hormuz, it will happen in 5 other places around the world. Why would countries all over the world say, well, we want to do this too? Not to mention how vital and critical that strait is to every country represented here today, but frankly to countries not represented here today, particularly the Indo-Pacific. So we'll have a good meeting today. I hope it'll be productive. I expect it will be, and it'll set the groundwork for the leaders to meet in about 6 weeks. And we have a lot of work to do between now and then. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Where will they be coming from?
Okay, guys.
Excellencies, if you could please look for a few seconds straight in front of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can you go a little bit in the middle for us to have just the logo? Yeah. Perfect, that's better. Looking here. Ladies, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but please let me know.
C'est à droite maintenant. C'est le siège du Luxembourg avec la partie télétravail avec un peu de repos.
Dear colleagues, you have to stand. I'm fine. How are you? I didn't shake her hand because we were oh, they don't like each other. Hey.
sit here? Or there? No, here. Yes. Dear colleagues, please take your seats so we can start. So, good morning. Good morning to this important meeting of NATO foreign ministers. And I indeed again want to thank Sweden for the wonderful hospitality. Also last night with the King and Queen and the Prime Minister, it was a really lovely evening. Also having Andriy Sybiha there to discuss, of course, issues around Ukraine. I think that was very good. So again, Maria, thank you so much for making this possible. We will have an important meeting ahead of us today. We will, of course, discuss the outcome of the Hague, the summit, and how we now move into the Ankara summit, making a success. First of all, when it comes to the spending, and we see all over NATO territory the spending rapidly ramping up. Last year, it is really staggering in Europe and Canada, equalizing now over time with the United States. But that is not the only reason we spend more. Yes, of course, we do it for that reason, because it is fair, but also because we need the money to make us capable of defending NATO territory. And it is deeply rooted, as you know, in the capability targets. But this money only makes sense, not only when we have the men and women in uniform, of course, they are key, but also for them to have their hands on the defense industrial output. And that is a big issue all over NATO territory. So that will be a big issue in Ankara, but also an opportunity. Because when we speak sometimes about the defense dividend, the jobs, the extra production capacity coming online to defend ourselves, there is also, of course, an economic element in the US, in Canada, in Europe, and we see more and more companies working across the Atlantic. And then third, Ukraine, making sure that we do everything to keep Ukraine as strong as possible in the fight. Of course, there are developments. The whole situation with Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the freedom of navigation, at this moment basically seriously being under threat. There is an issue we will no doubt also touch upon today. I know many of us are very worried about that situation, and I know that many countries have already pre-positioned very important military equipment close to theater, so to see how we collectively can help in the next phase. And so all of that will be no doubt today being discussed. Hey, again, thank you for organizing this, all of you for being here, and now for the media, please leave the room.
First me, right? Isn't it me first?
Oh no, sorry, first we will listen to the Foreign Minister of Sweden, excuse me, and then, so media, you can stay for another few minutes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark, and dear colleagues. I'm honored to welcome you all here to the southern part of Sweden and to my home region and to Helsingborg. And I'm proud to host the very first NATO ministerial meeting only 2 years after we joined. We are currently at the narrowest point of the Øresund Strait, one of the world's busiest international waterways in the midst of the dynamic Øresund region, connecting Sweden not only to Denmark but also to the greater continent. The strait is a maritime gateway to the Baltic Sea region, the very same region which is one of the geostrategic bases for Sweden's role and engagement in the alliance. With our membership, the security map of this part of Europe has been redrawn, allowing an increase of NATO's operational depth and tying the High North, the North Atlantic and the Baltic regions more closely together. Russia continues to threaten the security in the whole Euro-Atlantic area and test our readiness. Right here along the coastline, vessels from Russia's shadow fleet pass almost on a daily basis, financing Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. It underlines the importance of NATO's policy to constrain, counter and contest Russia. Dear colleagues, today's meeting is an important milestone on the road to the NATO summit in Ankara. The focus of the discussion will be how we together can deliver on the key priorities ahead of the summit. And our priorities are threefold. Demonstrating progress on the Hague Defence Investment Plan in order to enhance deterrence and defence, increasing defence production, and ensuring stronger and more sustainable support to Ukraine. These are all key points for the unity and the resolve of the alliance. I will come back to Sweden's contributions later, but I want to thank you, Secretary General, for steering us through today's discussion, and I very much look forward to our exchanges. Thank you.
And with that, we conclude the public part of our meeting.